Lately, I've been doing a ton of technical and redstone Minecraft tutorials, but I thought today we would mix it up a little bit. I've been getting a lot of comments on streams and videos about this storage room in particular and how much people are enjoying the look of it, especially when it comes to this stained glass fog effect. So today I'm going to show you how to accomplish that effect. The very first thing that you want to do is go and download my personal Blue Jay glass texture pack. This will allow you to have custom stained glass that has no borders and will seamlessly fit together. You can find this texture pack by joining my Discord server or by clicking the link in the description below. As you can see, there are no borders between same color pieces of glass, so it really sells that fog effect. It's really not that difficult of an effect to accomplish, but before we show you how to do it, let's take a look at a couple examples. The first one here I have encased in a white concrete pillar, and you can see it looks pretty good. You can't quite see the white concrete at the bottom there, but it's still relatively visible. This kind of effect could look good in snowy areas. I do have a single player Let's Play that I used to do that did have this exact effect, so even though you can see the bottom just a little bit, it does look pretty foggy and very, very cool. To sell this effect even more, you can use a dark block, especially if you're going to be in lighter places like black concrete. All you can really see is the stained glass, and it looks pretty phenomenal. Another thing to note as well is that these are very, very small samples, so you are obviously going to see sharp edges, but once you get this onto a larger scale build, the edges will kind of disappear into themselves and the effect will take over. For example, on this build right here, this is a simulation of some sort of a random shape of a cave or a room that you might find or build that you might want to put this fog effect in. Again, it's relatively small, so you can see all of the edges all the way around, but as you get to a larger scale room, the fog effect does really sell itself a lot more because you can barely see the transitions between layers, especially if you're looking straight down the middle like this. It just looks like this effect goes on for an eternity. So let's go ahead and take a look at how we accomplish this particular effect. It may seem like an obvious thing that doesn't need said, but since we are doing a tutorial, we'll go ahead and point it out anyway. The first thing you're gonna need is an empty space to put your fog. It doesn't matter how large or how small this is, you can accomplish this effect on any scale, but something to keep in mind, this will look a whole lot better if you have more depth and more width. Depth is especially important because you need a certain number of stained glass layers before the effect truly sells itself, because if you can still see the bottom of the floor, it doesn't really look as good. All you really want to see with this effect is that the color fades out into pretty much a vanishing point. After you've got a pretty decent sized room, the next thing that we need to do is place down one layer of stained glass that covers the entire floor area of the space. If you leave any areas open, it starts to not sell the effect and not look as good. The only exception to this is if you have elevated areas like this. Let's say this is a cave area and you've got some rocks laying around. It's okay to do something like this and then just kind of cover it up as you go on up. These things will stick out, that's totally fine, but if you want a totally seamless glass fog effect, just break everything to a flat surface and then cover it all up. It is also important to have two different colors of stained glass, preferably something that's somewhat similar, blue and light blue, purple and pink, red and orange. It doesn't matter, just try to use similar colors so that they blend well together. If you use the same color, you're not gonna get the fog effect, it's just gonna look like one solid piece of glass all the way down. Next, we wanna go ahead and skip one block and leave an air block in between the glass and the next layer, and do the same thing. Go ahead and fill this entire area up with glass. You can already see the effect taking shape because we've got two different colors of glass, but it still does look pretty blocky. You can see the solid lines, and you can still see the floor. But as we continue to go up, that will become less and less visible. Once we have a light blue and a dark blue, we want to switch back to light blue again so that it alternates every other one. Then another thing that we can do to provide a little bit more depth is instead of skipping one block this time, we're going to skip 2 blocks so that we've got 2 air blocks of a gap between the previous glass layer. Then we'll do the same thing once again, go ahead and fill the entire area, and the effect is becoming even more sellable, even at 3 layers. Now, if this is a brighter block or a more textured block that's not concrete, you're probably still going to be able to see it at 3 layers. Case in point, you can still see the floor on my storage room on truly Bedrock because there's gravel, there's stone, there's bedrock, there's all sorts of stuff down there that will allow you to see it through glass. It's not a flat surface like concrete. It's not entirely a big deal if 3 layers is all you can go. Sometimes that's the limitations of your space. But if you want it to be a little bit more sellable, you need to have more layers. So we'll just continue this on up and keep taking a look at progress as we go. Now that we've reached the top of our pillar here, we do have light blue as the top layer, and I'm not exactly fond of that being the top layer. You may not always be able to do this with your space, but because we are working in a creative setting, I can go ahead and afford to build this up a little bit higher so that we can land on the dark blue. We can't just replace that with dark blue because the previous layer is dark blue. And as I've mentioned earlier, if you do 2 of the same layer in a row, you're not going to get the fog effect. It's just going to look like a couple layers of glass. You're going to see right through it. You won't really even be able to tell that it's there. So we'll go ahead and add our last layer in here, and we should be about finished. And now, as you can see, it's got that vanishing point down there. You can't see the gray concrete anymore. All you see is a sea of blue, and that's exactly the effect that we're going for. This can be done with really any color in the game, and you can even add some fun things at the bottom, like if you wanted to add water down there, or if you wanted to add lava under here, just to kind of sell that effect even more. There are a lot of different applications for where to use fog, but this is the basic idea of how to do it. You can see a little bit of a side view of how we layered this out. So once again, we've got a glass layer, air layer, glass layer, 2 airs, another glass, 2 more air, another glass, 2 more air, another glass, 1 air, another glass, 2 more air, another glass, 1 more air, and then a final layer of glass. So it is good to mix this up and randomize it a little bit. You don't want to have necessarily just a set pattern of every other 1 or every other 2. It is good to mix it up because it does, again, sell that effect even more. My absolute favorite application of this effect that I've ever done is in this single player world that I used to play on. This is a giant snow cavernous science center kind of thing where we've got a giant nether portal that's supposed to have exploded into the room and throwing all of this purple fog all over the place. Absolute favorite application for this. You can still see like the pillar that the portal is standing on and the remains of the room before it was kind of exploded into existence. And then when you fall onto the glass, it kind of ruins the effect. So just make sure not to do that. But again, this is one of those examples of how you can still have this fog effect with structures around it. It doesn't have to be a completely flat surface. It doesn't have to be a completely square room. You can get really interesting with shapes and dynamics and depth and all sorts of things like that. I am so very excited to see how you guys put this into practice in your own builds. Go ahead and join up with my Discord so you can send me those pictures when you've got them finished. But if you enjoyed this tutorial, please leave a like and leave a comment. It does help out the channel, and I always love hearing your feedback. And be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. But thank you so much for watching, and have a fantastic day.